Well, welcome to the call, everyone. It's 3:30 and I want to get started to respect all of your time. My name is Morgan Gache. I'm the CEO of the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce, and it's a pleasure to have you all join us, whether you're live or whether you're watching this as a recording. What we wanted to do was to collaborate as a team of leadership here in the county. And we have a lot of entities that are represented, which we are very proud of and very excited about. And I will have them introduce themselves here in just a moment. But what's important is that we felt it was critical to have a unified message rolling out with the confusing and immense data that was being released on behalf of the county, state, federal levels, in private partnerships and public partnerships. And so our goal was to connect with you, and specifically today as real estate professionals, to really unpack the resilience roadmap, which is the California state's guidance on reopening. And so I would love to start, and let's have Debbie, if you could start the conversation. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, awesome. Debbie, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and your involvement right now. And you're on mute.
Learning technology. My name is Debbie Ponte. I'm Executive Director of Destination Angels Camp. And basically, Destination Angels Camp is a public-private partnership with the City of Angels Camp. And our goal, our mission is to help sustain business here in town, help them grow. If there's opportunity, we have resources available to people, whether it's about funding or how to develop your business plan, marketing, etc. We also, our main objective is to recruit new business to Angels Camp and help them succeed as well. COVID is new and different for us, so the public partnership has been real critical for Angels Camp, and we have become like this communication arm, liaison, resource center for the City of Angels in regards to businesses here in Angels Camp.
Thank you. Awesome. And Colleen, I'm going to jump down to you. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Rodriguez, and I'm the Deputy Director of Public Health, which is a division of the Health and Human Services Agency at Calaveras County.
Thank you so much for joining. And then I'm going to dart over to Kathy Galino. Kathy, you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, I'm Kathy Galino. I'm the Calaveras County Economic and Community Development Director, and I'm here to help businesses open and thrive and grow and do good things in our communities.
Awesome. And then last but not least, I believe we have Kristen on the line. Kristen, are you there?
Yes, hi, I'm joining via phone,
Awesome.
courtesy of my technology issues, apologies. My name is Kristen Stranger. I'm the Health and Human Services Agency Director. I work with Colleen, and Public Health has had obviously an integral response in terms of COVID-19, and we are happy to be here and happy to help from any perspective that we could provide.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to have you elaborate a little bit, Kristen, since you guys have been kind of a focal point for us in the last couple of months. Can you share a little bit about the transition that we're officially in phase 2 now? And I'm sure most people watching this are already aware of that, but can you give a description from your perspective or your role on where we are currently at right now?
Sure. So throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the governor's office has kind of broken down what reopening our economy will look like into 4 various stages of reopening. And so up until last week, we were, as an entire state, all in stage 1, which basically is a stay-at-home order, which still remains in effect, but just only having businesses open that were essential services, and those were defined by the state government. About a week and maybe about 2 weeks ago, the state decided to create opportunities for local jurisdictions that had different disease prevalence, right? That didn't maybe have as much COVID-19 confirmed cases, that had the ability to more social distance. Oftentimes that was, and that was mostly, most of us are rural counties, smaller rural counties. And so the state created what was called the variance attestation process. And what it allowed local jurisdictions to do was to evaluate themselves based off of a number of criteria, all public health based, ability to contact trace, disease prevalence, ability to provide personal protective equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a number of data points that we were asked to evaluate ourselves on and then submit to the state for them to post that onto their website. So Calaveras County was amongst the, I believe it's 20, anywhere around approximately 21, anywhere between 20 and 24 counties now that were approved for a statewide variance to move fully into stage 2. And what that means is that the businesses that are defined as part of stage 2, which include dine-in restaurants, retail beyond just the curbside perspective, and other types of businesses that are made available on the state's website as well as our own, have the ability to open with modifications to increase social distancing, increase sanitation, et cetera. And so the California Department of Public Health has developed industry-specific guidance that they have made available on their state website, and which is where we push our community members to as well, because each industry has its own specific guidance, and then it has its own specific checklist associated with it. And those are kind of the go-to documents for a particular industry or business in terms of understanding what's required of them in order to operate in a modified manner through in stage 2 of reopening and beyond. And so those, I think for the point of clarity, I wanted I've been sharing on these various webinars that those are the documents that Public Health in Calaveras County is also mandating. We are not mandating additional documents above and beyond that. We are asking our businesses to comply with those documents. We are not asking you to send those in advance of opening, but rather just assure that you have those in place, that you're taking those proper measures, and then have the ability to reopen as full part of stage 2. So I think that's kind of a synopsis of where we are. It's been moving very quickly. A lot of this is the guidance from the state has been ever changing, and so we're doing our very best to follow that and make sure that's known to our community so that we can continue to achieve reopening while also maintaining the safety of our community in this COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Yeah, great explanation. And it's interesting because even though I asked you to kind of give us a current snapshot over the course of the last 3 of these that we've done so far, I feel like there's tweaks and adjustments on each one, which will continue to happen, I'm sure. So as of May 19 at 3:38 p.m., that is the current standing of where we are at. Yeah. Thank you, Kristen. So what I wanted to do is do a little bit of housekeeping before we launch into this call. And because with real estate, the roadmap here, we really want this to be an interactive call. So for those of you that are on live with us, as much as you are able to participate, that's going to be a great value to you and to everyone that's watching this recording in the future. So your questions, don't feel that they're outside the box, don't feel that they're inappropriate. We want to hear the kind of questions that you have so we can troubleshoot with you so that you can be able to work as much as you possibly can in a safe manner. So if you have any questions at any point, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box, or you can also raise your hand and we'll invite you into the conversation. So just wanted to put that out there. Now, Kristen just gave some guidance on the page that we're talking about, and I imagine that most people at this point have seen it, but it bears repeating. So the state guidance, the resilience roadmap that we've been kind of pointing to is at covid19.ca.gov/roadmap. And we'll use this resource many times, but where you find information regarding real estate transactions and how to do business and reopen in real estate, you're actually going to go down to issuing guidance right here, and you're going to scroll down. to real estate. And there's two different pieces, and Kathy is going to kind of break these down a little bit for you, point out some specific pieces that are relevant for you to know. All of it's relevant. I don't know why I said that, but it bears a pause to know that there is guidance and there is checklist. And when I first saw this, and Colleen kind of helped steer me in the right track, because I thought, oh, checklist, well, I'll just go to that. That's the easiest thing. They are not the same thing. One helps explain the other. And so it is important that we use them in tandem with each other. So I wanted to point out both of those. And also, the county has a roadmap to reopening Calaveras County, so roadmap to recovery. You can also access the state governance on here as well. So I just wanted to point out both of those spots to you. So Kathy, if you can now give us some feedback on some things that stick out to you, because this is a little different than the retail and the restaurant guidance that we've gone over in the past. So what sticks out to you specifically with real estate?
Well, thank you for having me here today. And so, yes, there's a couple of things that really stood out to me when I read the guidance, and then married that up with the checklist. And one of the pieces that's similar throughout the various guidance documents is that there's that the industry develops a written worksite specific plan. And we have a link, or we actually have a sample that's on the Chamber of Commerce's website on their business toolkit. I'm not going to pull that up right now. It's important, very important, that we keep ourselves, our family, our colleagues, our coworkers, and our clients safe. That's the overarching most important piece of why this guidance document exists, why there's the checklist, and why we do what we do to keep ourselves safe and our families and those we care about. So in looking at this particular document, and I'm going to ask Colleen to jump in here in just a minute, it's going to be very important that real estate agents work with their employees on training regarding OSHA standards and CDC guidance, and to tell your employees, please do not come to work if they're sick. If they have fevers and chills and sore throat, prevention is going to be really important. Washing hands, especially after touching your face, wearing face coverings, having sanitizers, and doing good cleaning before and after. So that's kind of overarching. That's for all of us, for all industries. One of the things that I've been asked several times is, how do I know if my employees are sick or not? Is there a screening procedure that they can do before coming to work? And in looking at the guidance, you can have your employees take their temperature at home before coming to work. And it's, up to you to do a visual check to see if they look like they're not feeling well. They might be flushed, fatigued, their cheeks are red, they're coughing, they're not feeling good. So that's really important that people do not come to work if they're sick, or if people in their family may be sick. Again, we want to keep ourselves healthy. Colleen, do you want to talk a little bit more about the self-screening?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. So I think that there's a variety of ways that people can do self-screening. You can, as Kathy said, you can ask your folks to screen themselves at home, or you can screen them before they come into your office. And as Kathy said, there's a lot of links, live links on the guidance itself. And I also just wanted to point you to a couple of things. One is that for the purposes of COVID, a temperature is considered to be 100 degrees or higher. So just put that out there. And then on the guidance, on the real estate guidance itself, underneath the topics for employee training, at the very bottom of that section, right above where it says individual control measures and screening, I just also wanted to point you to the bullet that talks about information on employer or government-sponsored leave benefits. There's been a lot of new stuff that's been put out there, and I just wanted to kind of point you to that section as well, just because we know that a lot of folks get nervous about staying home if they're sick because they don't, they get nervous about being able to pay their bills and being able to bring in an income. So some of that information may be helpful as well. And then when you look at the cleaning and disinfecting protocols for workplaces, the thing that really stuck out for me, and it's something that we actually do in public health as well, is to wipe down everything all the time. So I think Kathy's going to go into kind of more detail about that, but it's just really important to wipe down any surfaces, especially things like door handles and knobs and different things like that that people are touching.
Thank you. So in going through the guidance document for real estate, there's some other things that were in there, and I know people have heard, talk about face coverings, whether they're required or not required. It's strongly recommended that you use face coverings, especially when you're interacting with colleagues, with coworkers and clients. You should try to stagger your schedules. And I know a lot of realtors, not everybody's in the office at the same time. I think we've all learned how to work from home pretty successfully. So trying to limit the number of agents in an office at any one time and continue to promote telework. You can consider using gloves to supplement frequent hand washing and hand sanitizer. And of course, encourage distance meetings and virtual showings. Those have been really popular. Maintaining your 6 feet of physical distancing in the office. And you may need to move some furniture around. You may need to, have folks spaced out a little bit more. Other things that I picked up on was, and this is kind of a bummer, a lot of the real estate agents, they have, their little kitchenette area with their coffee and their water, but trying to discourage, that use of a common area where you're touching water bottles, coffee pots, and so forth. Just things to think about. Avoid sharing office equipment, especially pens, clipboards, phones, keyboards, copy machines. These are all areas that are high touch. And again, as Colleen mentioned, disinfect and clean, sanitize all the time. I mean, you literally have to wipe in and wipe out. Disinfecting different areas like your countertops and areas where you might have people coming in, your lunchroom, your restrooms. Make sure that they're stocked with cleaning supplies and all that good stuff. Display the signage in your office. Let people know that are coming into your office the safety measures that you're taking and that you're taking seriously. There's some great signage out there. Again, there's, I believe, some templates in the business toolkit that is on the Chamber of Commerce website. If you want to throw that link up there, Morgan, that'd be awesome. Mm-hmm. They also have disinfecting products that are available locally. We have some resources here, local vendors. And I know that I've heard in other industries that getting cleaning products is a huge problem. So if that is, we've got some local links for you. Do not share rides. It used to be back in the day, the real estate agent would have you hop in their car and then you go check out a house. Let's not do that anymore. Just each employee and each client should ride separately. So some interesting things in the showing. So when you're actually doing an in-person showing at a home, there is a requirement in the guidance that you have a written COVID-19 prevention plan for showing properties. This includes face coverings for your agents and for those that you're meeting, your clients, hand washing, sanitizing, maintaining social distancing. That 6-foot thing is really, really serious. Limit the touching of items. I know that when I look at homes and places, I want to see how big the cabinets are and what, how the closets are, and try to discourage that as much as possible, even if you have to stage it somewhat prior to the showing. Post and display at the properties your prevention plan. So how are you preventing the transmission of COVID-19? And then ask your clients electronically to review your guidance before they come to the showing. And they can do an electronic approval that, yes, I've received the guidance and the cover and what we're covering here. And there is no specific format. It's something that's just something that you would develop internally and get your client's approval. We find that pictograms are really good as well, and I think I have one that I can share. Let me share my screen. Let's see, I want this one. I don't know if I can do this. I try to get more sophisticated with this. No, I'm not able to do it, but I have this pictogram here. It's in Adobe Acrobat, and I really wanted to share it, but pictograms are really good things. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, I did it. So pictograms are really good to have around. It's real quick information. People get it. They're used to seeing this. This is through the CDC. There's several more. And I believe, again, back in the business toolkit that's hosted on the chamber site, that we have other resources like that. So the prevention plan also applies to your appraisers, inspectors, contractors, and agents. It's not just between the realtor and the potential client or the homeowner, but it really pertains to everybody. Ask occupants not to be present. I think that's pretty standard. Most people don't want to be home when they're having their home shown, and limit the number of people coming to the showings. Try to have it just, one or two people, but not, everybody, their kids, their parents, their cousins and friends. When you're doing a showing, try to limit the amount of people that are there. When showing a property in person, try to allow for natural air. It's a great time of year to have doors and windows open. Ventilation is great, and fresh air is always good. Upon arriving, have your clients wash their hands before entering, or right when they enter the property, and before the showing, and to wear a face covering. Let me go here. Supply hand sanitizers at showings. So you might have a little dispenser there, or just provide everybody with one like you do with your employees. So your employees would have at their workstations hand sanitizers and cleaning materials for cleaning their desks and their keyboards and such. Cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, high touch areas, doorknobs, cabinets, faucets, light switches, gate latches, all those things need to be cleaned and disinfected between showings, before and after. Discourage clients from touching everything. I know that's hard, but I think people get it. Try to anticipate by having your owners leave the lights on, the fans on, and the doors open, so that there's easy access and we don't have to be touching various surfaces. Again, do not share pens. Ensure that there's enough time between your showings to allow for a proper deep cleaning and sanitizing. Ensure that, especially mobility and safety fixtures like handrails and banisters, they have to be sanitized before and after showings. Remember, maintain that social distancing as you're going in and out of rooms or hallways. No handshaking. I know that's a hard one because I'm a handshaker and I'm a hugger. Can't be doing that. And if possible, as I said, use high efficiency ventilation systems or filters, or leave the doors open for fresh air. And then make sure that you have all your real estate transactions that are electronically or digitally done. So you're not touching paper, you're not touching pens and clipboards. Also, lock boxes are another thing that you're going to need to clean if you have lock boxes on keys and those types of things. So there is also in the guidance, let's see. The checklist. So I just kind of went over kind of the ins and outs of, and I don't know if Morgan, you can bring up the checklist real quick. The checklist should be part of your written plan. It helps cover all of the various pieces that are in the guidance document. And as Morgan alluded to, and that Colleen has reminded us, the checklist isn't just a check, check, check. It's part of your plan. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be updated. if you see things that are like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that, or, oh, that didn't work out so good, revise your plan. It's a living document. You might need to update it as things change. There's great hot links in this document as well, for training employees, topics to discuss, and again, all the disinfecting protocols and all the good information. I mean, a lot of it seems like it's common sense, but there's times that behavior and habit kind of overtake your brain sometimes. So,
Kathy, can I ask a question at this point? Um, I I'm asking this as someone who, in the last couple of years, bought a home. I am a toucher, and I'm sure that a lot of your clients out there are going to be touchers. Something I've done, and maybe this is a Colleen and Kristen weigh in, but one of the things that I've tried to do, like when I go to the post office or the grocery store, is I carry like a Lysol wipe in my hand, and then like anything I touch, I just touch with the Lysol wipe. So I wanted to get kind of thoughts on that, and then also thoughts on, and I know this is kind of a hot topic, but on the effectiveness of gloves. But would it be effective for, you know, a real estate professional to ask clients upon entering a home to either wash their hands or use hand sanitizer, and then use like gloves while they're there? Is that even something doable, or can anybody weigh in on that?
This is Colleen. So there's a couple of interesting things about gloves. One is they're only as good as the last thing that you touched. So gloves really originally, well, I don't know about originally, but most recently are intended as kind of a block between us and substances that can hurt us, right? So one of the things that is hard is that unless you're trained to be wearing gloves all the time, you might touch something, then touch your face, you touch something, you touch your eye. You think you're being safe because you have the gloves on, but actually you're kind of collecting all of these other things and then touching your face, and then you might adjust your mask, and now you've put all the stuff that was on your glove now on your mask. So the thing that that I've heard most recommended, which isn't going to be great for those of us, because I'm a tactile person too, I like to feel fabric and I like to touch countertops, is to unfortunately to touch with our eyes, because if we don't do that and then we go and touch our face, or we adjust our mask, or we have the gloves and we touch something else, the chance of cross-contaminating is pretty high. If someone was maybe able to, follow behind someone, like if they cleaned every surface, then the person touched it and then they followed behind them and then they cleaned every surface, I just don't know how practical that would be. So it's not the best answer, but that is from a public health standpoint, that's kind of where we're at.
Any thoughts on the Lysol wipe?
So the Lysol wipes, it just, it depends. So it depends on how, a lot of those Lysol wipes, if you read them, they actually say to leave the surface wet for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. A lot of us feel like it just kills stuff right away. It doesn't necessarily. So if you're willing to like wipe it and then wait the recommended time, but it doesn't sound like that's like the thing that's going to work in this particular case. So it's kind of tricky because the science is still very much out in terms of how COVID is spread on surfaces. In fact, I just read a thing from CDC today saying that there may be limited spread on surfaces. And if you recall, just a couple weeks ago, everybody was wiping down their Amazon packages and wiping down every single thing that they ever touched, right? But now they may have gone the other way. So just from a science or data standpoint, the jury is still kind of out on that.
Okay. Thank you. I was very curious about that.
I'll weigh in just a bit. I mean, I've seen so many fads come and go about the wipes and the hand sanitizers, and like Colleen said, the importance of gloves. You really need to use them properly and know how to. Just nothing beats hand washing. So I think for the real estate sector, as you show homes, that is one of the things you can practice in the home. Most of these places do have the running water. you have some paper towels off to the side, and they wash their hands as they go in and they wash their hands as they go out. Is a good policy to kind of start out with. What you do in between times, that's a hard one. It's I think a personal preference, but you know, my mother-in-law was a public health nurse, and she said, you know, it's okay if we get some bad germs once in a while. All these disinfectants and wipes and everything else is really kind of killing out our immunity system. So you know, we could probably debate that one over and over again, but you know, good hand washing in general. So if you're in your offices, you know, using more hand washing techniques in practices more so than you probably have in the past. But I think for showing homes, that's one thing that you could do as a before and an after, as kind of a precautionary as to how you've entered the house and how you've left that house.
Yeah. We have a few questions. So Kathy, can we come back to you in just a moment and ask a few of these questions? Okay. So first of all, we have, let's see, Jean, you look like you raised your hand and then lowered it. I'm not sure if you still wanted to ask your question. So raise your hand if you still want to. So Shelby asked a couple things. I have not been able to order gloves online or wipes. I was able to order a box one time, and that was right when it hit, but I cannot get them anymore, and every store is out of wipes. Any links or thoughts on getting supplies, please let us know. Yes, we will put links here in. We have several options now for PPE. So, and some of them are same day, some of them are pickup at that time. So that's the good news there. So we will put those in the links here. And then the next question, now we're being told to even supply booties over the weekend. Anybody have any weigh in on that?
I've not seen that as part of the state guidance. That might be something that's through your real estate licensing board. I've not seen that in any of the documents. Have you, Colleen?
I haven't. And again, I think, you know, there's still a lot of information out there that we don't know. So I don't know whether or not COVID is spread through stuff on your shoes. I mean, I would think one way around that is to go the Hawaii route and have people take off their shoes. But I don't know how comfortable people are with that. But I haven't seen it in the guidance.
Yeah, this is Kristen. I just word searched it and also don't see anything specific about booties and such. It could be a best practice coming out of the industry. You know, I did want to point out one thing though, because real estate has been one of the areas that's a little bit more confusing for me to follow along with, and I'm sure if it's also confusing for others too. So the reason that real estate is kind of difficult so if you go to the stage 1, stage 2, you'll notice that real estate itself is not actually mentioned on the stage 1 or the stage 2, right? It's not one of the industries specifically called out. And I think that has to do with the fact that real estate and transactions for real estate have always been in some form or another in the essential services guidelines, right? Which is the original, I think it's like a 27-page document that lists all the essential workforces. Right. Now, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen real estate, the guidance on what's allowable per real estate be modified a couple of times. So just for the good of the group, I wanted to clarify why you cannot specifically find on the stage 2 list the words real estate transaction, and why you'll still see the guidance out there that we're going over today on the tab. So for the good of the group, just to read the 2 sentences about that specifically address real estate from the essential services larger document, this is what it says, that could currently be operational right now. Essential workforce, so real estate is considered essential workforce if remote working is not practical. From page 23, residential and commercial real estate workers limited to scheduled property viewings to a potential buying party. This does not extend to open house viewings, nor viewings with more than one buying party at a time. And on page 16, it says staff at government offices who perform this title search, notary, recording service is in support of mortgage and real estate services and transactions. But I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that this information resides in the large the essential services document, and then which is the reason you won't see it specifically called out on the stage 2 guidance.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so that gives a little bit of a directive. Shelby had another question. She said, also, I have a friend who is making homemade sanitizers. She has a business, and I have been buying them from her, and I give my clients a little gift bag with a branded business card and a ribbon, of course, with a small bar of homemade soap. They love it. Oh, that's awesome. Great idea. Great idea. Okay, so Kathy, I am going to go back to you.
So what I'd like to do now is, I know that we have about 8 attendees, various realtors in our communities, and want to ask, what are they doing? How are you doing things? One of the reasons we're doing these webinars is to also share information and ideas, what's working. Thank you, Shelby, for your suggestion. That was awesome. But how are other folks doing things? And let's have that discussion, and whether we want to have a peer-to-peer follow-up on this, if you guys feel like you have it under control, or just, I'd like to hear if anybody wants to raise their hand, what they're doing.
While people are doing that, I did have another question that someone did ask me. Now, the guidance, it looks like it's for, a lot of it is for specific real estate offices. And so the question was, what does a worksite specific plan look like? Do we have to create one for each home we show?
Mute. So no, so you will have a site-specific work plan for your office. That's one. And then you will have developed whatever your plan is, your COVID-19 prevention plan, and that's a standard policy that goes for all of your showings. So what you require, face coverings, hand washing, and there's pretty specific guidance on that that's in the guidance document. I didn't want to read it all out, but it talks about what you need to put in your plan. Again, there's no template for this. It's probably something you could create on your computer and as a Word document. We do have the one that we do have at the chamber, which was for the site-specific work plan. And I don't know if you can pull that up so they can kind of see what it looks like. So there is the Back to Business Toolkit, which was a great collaboration between the county and the city and public health and all the great folks that we work with. It's a great resource. There's a lot of information. And then we have a sample worksite specific plan.
Oops.
And
Pardon me.
it was just one that was done in a Word doc. Basically what's important to cover is who's responsible for the plan. So is it the broker? Is it the agent? Is it the owner? You identify who it is, where your address is, and then do your assessment. Identify in your office where your high risk areas, your medium risk areas, or low risk areas are, and address your mitigation action for keeping those areas clean and safe for both yourself, your employees, and your clients that may come in. And this is one that we did for, I don't remember what industry that was. I think it was retail.
Yes.
So yeah, and then once you develop your mitigation measures, then how are you communicating that out? Whether you have signage up in your office, your building, about the great things that you're doing, which also gives your clients a sense of comfort and relief when they come in. I know a lot of people want to go outside. They want to be able to go do things that they used to do. And some are very uncomfortable and nervous about that. They want to make sure if they're going into a business that they're safe, that they're protected, that it's clean. So again, this helps highlight all the good things that you're doing to keep your community safe. Then also review and update. There might be sometimes that something gets overlooked or missed. Address that in your plan and address that in making corrective actions, and maybe briefing your staff the next day or your employees the next day. Hey, notice this didn't happen, the trash didn't get taken out, there's a bunch of stuff in there. Let's make sure we address that. So update your plan. And it's a living document. I mean, this whole thing is kind of a living document, evolving daily experience.
So, Debbie, can you share a little bit with us in regards to, one thing we talked about beforehand, and until you guys have any other questions that you want to add on, is the similarities in questions that we get across the sectors, the business sectors. And so I wondered if you could highlight some of the common questions that you are getting that are applicable in the real estate profession. And you're on mute.
Some of the common questions, I think in general, because it's such a fluid situation that, what we know today may not be the same as tomorrow. I often tell people that, especially with the real estate, you have several strong organizations. The Calaveras County Board of Realtors, then you have at the state level, and both associations are working very hard to keep up to date and providing realtors their kind of toolbox to use. So that's another good resource guide to follow. Also, the COVID side is a good one to follow. I mean, there's many, you can get bombarded with where to go to get information. So I really try to focus people I talk to, concentrate on a few sites, because if you go to 50 of them, you're going to get 50 different answers and different ways of doing things. And so trying to narrow down the sites that you refer to, or where you go to get information. And that, I think that's what's fortunate with the real estate industry, is that you do have strong associations, and they're working, for on your behalf and helping you through these times. Other industries don't always have that. So the food industry has environmental health, cosmetology with hair salons and such, and the real estate with the real estate association is helpful. I do caution people when I talk to them too about, don't forget to keep in touch with your insurance. Some of you have closed, or you've really downsized your businesses, and as you begin to reopen, it's just important that you're making connection with your insurance companies to make sure if they have any guidelines they want you to follow to help cover your liability, etc. It's really important that you make contact with them and let them know what you're doing, and maybe even show them your plan or tell them that you're making a plan, and they may have additional ideas for you to follow. Some folks that are, if you have a regulatory agency like real estate has several, I believe, they're pretty much in touch with you and following guidelines and helping create some policies and procedures for you to follow. So I find that if you do a little bit of research here, and the Chamber's Back to Business Toolkit is a good resource, so you don't have to go and invent these new checklists and these new policies and procedures. A lot of the information is out there. It's just customizing it to your particular business or to how you operate as a business. So there are a lot of resources out there, so don't feel like oh my God, I have to create another policy and find this and get that and that sort of thing. So reach out, and if you can't find it, then call Morgan at the Chamber or myself or Kathy. We're pretty accessible via phone and email, and if you can't find it, then maybe we can direct you to a more direct resource to find it.
Yeah, thank you. I had another question too. So in going over the checklist and the guidance, there was comments about putting in your plan how to advise home inspectors and appraisers and all of the different kinds of people that are going to be coming into the home that you're listing or the property that you're listing. And so with that being said, is it the responsibility of the real estate professional, or is it the responsibility of the professional that's coming in? Where does the PPE, where does all that fit in for real estate?
So you want to go ahead, Colleen?
No, go ahead.
So, I mean, in looking at the guidance in the document, it's pretty specific that whoever's listing the home, the agent would be kind of the one responsible. I know a lot of our realtors, some are independent, some are not, some work for a larger organization. So if you actually look at part of the guidance, it's actually, I believe, let me pull it up here real quick. See if I can do it. There it is. It's workplace. They broke it down into workplace and then for showing properties. So when they talk about the plan, I swear it was like at the top of a page. Nope. Sorry. Oh, I hate dead silence. And I can't do a word search, so I can't find it.
I think, you know, Kathy, from my knowledge is that I think ultimately it's that agent who has the responsibility to either educate, inform, you know, make sure everybody understands the policies and procedures, etc. But my experience too is that each of the groups that support the real estate industry, the appraisals and such, folks who will test for termites and so on and so forth, they too have their policies and procedures in place on how to deal with these kinds of things. So, you know, I think all the modalities of the services that support the real estate industry are pretty up to speed on what they need to do and are getting their policies and procedures in place to deal with things like this. But I think ultimately it's the agent who has to probably serve as the reminder that
Right.
if you're coming into the home, this is what the client needs to do, or this is what the pest control folks need to do, etc.
And I'm sure those that have their home listed are appreciative of that as well, that there's kind of somebody reminding, you know, as I'm going out and somebody's coming into my home, I want to make sure that I don't come back to something either, you know.
Right.
So kind of reminding that.
I've invited Jesse Gibbs to join the conversation. Jesse, are you there?
I am.
Hey, Jesse, welcome to the conversation. You've had some really good points. We'd love for you to share them.
Well, I think she was searching for the form or whatever. So we do have the different forms. There was actually numerous forms that came out from the California Association. On the listing side, there was a COVID form to add to that, which within that, the seller gave us permission to allow people to enter their home. It was that, you know, giving that, yes, you can, or there were some that maybe didn't want their home to be shown, so we could take them off the market temporarily or just work through virtual stuff. What you guys were referring to on the other form is the PED form, which all parties need to sign that. So sellers sign that saying that, you know, that basically they haven't had any symptoms or safe going in. And then on the, you know, for anybody else coming in, so buyers, agents, inspectors, you know, that PED form does get filled out, and then everybody retains copies because the state, you know, through the association, they told us that we needed to have a tracking system of who was in and out of that home, because at some point a buyer could say, you know, because we do have buyers that come from different areas, even though, you know, we're trying to keep that essential under control. But a buyer could say they were fine, and then 3 days later, if they came down with something, we needed to have a tracking system of who was in the home, who came in after they were in there, and that kind of stuff. So those P's are very important. And the California Association came down and said that's our one way of tracking this.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Anybody else have anything? I want to make sure that we can answer any questions that are left here. And if you're watching the replay of this, please feel free to ask your questions below. And we'll have, we have different representation here from the Public Health Department, Health and Human Services, and Economic Development and Angels Camp, Destination Angels Camp. So if there's anything that we can do to help support that or direct you, then, please ask those questions. Feel free to reach out to us. We want this to be able to be a resource for you. So any other additions from Kristen, Colleen, Debbie, Kathy? No, we're good. Okay. Hey, thank you all for doing such a great job out there and being really good at dealing with the ambiguity that is COVID-19 and the different reopening guidelines that we have. I know it's hard and it's challenging to keep up with. I know you guys are doing a great job in protecting your clients and protecting your peers, your colleagues. And so if you have any best practices that you would like to share, we'd love to hear them so that we can help support other people in the real estate profession here in Calaveras County. We're obviously biased to Calaveras County, but we'll be willing to share outside the county as well if need be. But please feel free to reach out to us. We have our contact information in the chat. And also, if you have any questions regarding PPE, feel free to email me, mgace@calaveras.org. Almost gave you my private email there. And feel free to email me. I can send you a few options that we have that can get you PPE stuff actually quite immediately. We have one more question.
We have one more question.
Yeah, so last question before we go. So do we carry a can of Lysol to spray the doorknob and lock boxes when we go in? Do we spray banisters before we let people go upstairs? It is also complicated to try and disinfect everything for our clients. Yes.
So the answer is yes. Yeah, you carry Lysol, wipes, whatever you're going to need to do to make sure that those mobility access areas are clean. I'm sorry that it's confusing and difficult. It is for a lot of folks. And actually, I want to share one last thing that I just got in an email regarding, let me see if I can pull it up here, regarding tax implications. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I jump in really quickly? So I would, just from a public health standpoint, I would be careful using aerosol-based sprays specifically for that disinfectant purpose, because for anybody who has any kind of compromised respiratory system and people are walking into it, you may get into some trouble there. So if you can do sprays that are that you can spray on something and then wipe things down, or use wipes themselves, that may be helpful as well.
Awesome.
So the link that I just received was actually from one of my colleagues back east, and it's regarding tax implications for realtors. And I just want to, I'm going to just put the link in our chat box. Holland and Knight is a law firm. As I said, they're here in California as well, but this was actually sent to me because I was mentioning that I was going to be doing this webinar today. And it's pretty interesting. It's just talking about the tax issues for the real estate industry as a result of COVID-19. So it's a pretty lengthy article. I haven't had time to read it, but anyway, and any chance that I can get information out to our different businesses and industries in our county, I want to share. So there's that.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much to all of you who participated and for sharing. Thank you to the panelists. And for those of you that are watching in live, we appreciate you and the questions. Thank you so much. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future and hopefully buying some real estate from you in the future. Take care, you all.